so the table has been set. The lamb, the bitter herbs, the wine, the unleavened bread, it's all laid out there on the table. The disciples had gone in and prepared the room for that Passover meal. It was all set. Do you remember the game you used to play with dominoes? Not when you matched up the numbers, but rather when you stood the dominoes up like soldiers. And you would stretch out the line of dominoes to go all the way across the room. Or you may have made different patterns, wondering what would happen when the first domino falls. The table was set. And Jesus had entered into that room, and he took the role of a servant. He knelt down, he took a basin of water, and he took a towel, and he washed the disciples' feet. And then afterwards, they got up and they sat at the table, and they ate that lamb, and they tasted those bitter herbs, and they drank that wine, and they ate that bread. And they told the story of redemption, about how God had led the people of Israel out of Egypt and had brought them to redemption, to wholeness, to a new life. And they talked about that. And then after the supper, Jesus began to talk to them about something new. It's what Maundy means, a new commandment. A new commandment that I give to you, Jesus says, that you love one another. His instruction is not to do what is normal, not to love those that love you back, not to love those that are just in your little circle, but to love one another. People who look like you and people who don't look like you. People who are wealthy and people who are poor. People who have been kind to you and people who have not been kind to you. People that are on your side and people that have been declared your enemy. A new commandment, Jesus said to his disciples, that I give to you, that you love one another. And so the table was set. And following this discussion about love and this discussion about redemption, Jesus said, one of you will betray me. And ultimately, Judas removed himself from the table and walked out of that room. And the first domino fell. All had come up to this moment. The beginning of perhaps the next 60 hours that rocked the world and changed history forever. First domino fell. You remember the song, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? It's a song written by Tim Rice and composed by Elton John and sung by those who were celebrating the love of Simba, the new Lion King, and Nala, his best friend. Simba knew that there was this something inside of himself that was striving to get out, this mighty warrior that he wanted to be, but yet he kept tripping over his own feet. Nala, desiring the love of Simba, but cannot figure out what in the world he's talking about and why it is that he's so silly. But we know that there is a love that is developing, that carries them. And the question that comes from that song is, can you feel the love of tonight? Can you feel the love that is meant for kings and vagabonds? can you feel the love that is for you? Judas gets up and walks out of the room, and the first domino falls. Jesus had gathered with his disciples there, and he broke the bread among them. And he said, "This is my body, broken for you, for the forgiveness of your sins, that you might be made whole." That as you eat this, every time you eat this, morning, noon, and night, that you might remember my great love for you, and that we become one together. Likewise, after supper, Jesus took the cup, and he offered the cup to his disciples, and he said to them, "Drink ye all of this. Take all of this in, for this is the blood of this new covenant, poured out for you and for many, poured out for all, for the sins of the whole world. Drink this in remembrance of me." Every time you drink it, morning, noon, and night, remember the great love that I have for you. And so that night, the dominoes fell. They began to, one by one, fall. Jesus went out into the garden to pray, and the disciples fell asleep. The Roman soldiers came, and they carried him off to Good Friday. But it was on this night, Maundy Thursday, when Jesus took the role of a servant and then offered the bread and the wine and said to the disciples, "This is the new covenant, that you love one another." And I would like to say, on one hand, that maybe the last domino fell on Easter morning. Or perhaps we all are still waiting for that last domino to fall. Perhaps over history, that train of dominoes, those soldiers have continued to fall out in that pattern that was laid out at the beginning of time. And it's not over yet. But one day, we'll discover the fullness of God's glory and his love as we take the risk to love those around us. May God bless you this day as we celebrate that most perfect gift, the gift that Christ gave of himself to you and to me and to the whole world.